Good morning, and it's very nice seeing you. Thanks for being with us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so how big of a problem is elder fraud in Utah?
It's a big problem, and what we've seen, and just to give you a sense, just last year, $100 million reported in losses by Utahns in fraud, and many of these are older Americans. They are targeted mostly because they have more money than the younger folks, and so they report larger losses. So, as part of June is Elder Abuse Awareness Month, and as part of that, our office has launched an initiative to visit every county in the state and to visit with senior centers in those counties and to help discuss how you spot a fraud and some tips to avoid it.
Okay, now who are they targeting the most, would you say?
Well, frankly, everyone's being targeted. And so even 30-year-olds are reporting quite a large number of frauds, but older Americans are reporting lots of fraud as well. And the number one type of fraud that we're seeing is called imposter fraud. And imposter fraud is where someone pretends to be someone else, like a business, or that you are a customer of, a government agency, or even a friend or family member, and they reach out and try and extract money from folks.
Okay, so I guess that's one common scheme. What would be some of the other more common that we can be on the lookout for?
Well, and just to give you an example of how you spot these imposter frauds, you will have someone come and pretend to be this business. They're going to tell you that there's some sort of problem or some sort of prize. They might tell you that, for example, you're going to be arrested. They might tell you that your services are cut off or your money is at risk of being lost. They might tell you that you won millions of dollars. And then they're going to pressure you. They're going to pressure you and tell you you need to act immediately. And then they will present some sort of way for you to get out of this problem or to be able to get this prize. And that's the payment, a very specific method of payment, crypto or gift card or gold or some other very specific method of payment that they want to extract from you. And so we're seeing lots of these imposter frauds. So, for example, and even while I'm going around the state and I'm talking to these senior centers everywhere in every county, and it's been wonderful to hear their stories. There's particularly stories where they avoid that and some of the tips that they use to avoid some of those frauds. But we learned from those, and I share those as I go as I'm giving more and more talks to senior centers. But just to give you an example of some of these that we're seeing, they're being contacted by someone pretending to be the sheriff, or by someone that's pretending to be the IRS. And so those are the government type. We also have business ones where people are pretending to be Amazon or FedEx or some delivery service. So they come in all sorts of flavors. So we need to be careful to be able to spot those and then understand ways to avoid it.
And how has technology made this more difficult to detect a scam?
That's such a great question. And that's something that I talk about a lot. Artificial intelligence has really supercharged the fraudsters. So just to give you an example, and you may have heard of this type of scam, where a grandmother receives a phone call from a grandson saying, "Grandma, I'm in trouble." Maybe it's like I got arrested or some other need. And what we're seeing is fraudsters can go on social media and just with 3 seconds of video of a grandson can clone that voice and use that to call the grandparent to sound just like the grandson. We know that this type of fraud was one senior told me about this in eastern Utah when I was doing a visit and talked about how the grandson called and he almost sent the money. He was very close to sending the money, but contacted the sheriffs and was able to avoid it.
Yeah, that's got to be very difficult, especially maybe for some folks who aren't really familiar with what technology can do.
Absolutely. And I'll just give you another example of artificial intelligence. Okay. They're using, they'll use social media and use the artificial intelligence to tailor the phishing to folks. So just another example, one Southern Utah woman that I met with she had received an email from what she thought was a neighbor. And the email sounded just like the neighbor. And we suspect that they went on social media to be able to craft and tailor this. But this is something that artificial intelligence can do. They can go into social media, look at your profile, and make it sound, and look at your posts, and make it sound just like your friend or family member when they're contacting you.
So with all of this going on, how is your office and law enforcement staying on top of this? Are you only getting the tip of the iceberg? Give me a sense of prosecutions and what you're doing.
Absolutely, and we prosecute lots of different kinds of frauds, and we will do that. But unfortunately, we cannot get to all of them. We do not catch all of them, and that's why this initiative to me is so important, because prevention is key. There's just a few tips that folks, that if they have those in their mind, they can avoid a lot of this. One of those tips that I talk to people is to make sure you're talking to the real person, the real entity. So for example, there's one fraud where caller ID might come up and it might say your bank's name, but it's not actually your bank. So you want to make sure that you're cutting off that conversation with the fraudster, and you're initiating to your bank, to your business, with the contact information that you have. Contact information that you gathered from a trusted source, like a bank statement or your actual bank card, so that you are talking to the real person and the real company, and not the fraudster. Okay,
so how will the government communicate with you if you owe taxes and that type of thing?
That's such a great question. The IRS is not going to call you and tell you that they are going to arrest you. Right? The IRS communicates to you through mail. That is not what they do. Another example is one northern Utah woman was telling me about how a fraudster called and told her that they were with the sheriff's office and that her relative had been arrested, and they were seeking money for the ankle monitor. That is not how the government works. So there are simple examples like that in terms of how the government is reaching out to you. The government will also not, and this is a common fraud that we're seeing, is not going to threaten to arrest you for jury duty. And we're seeing that fraud quite a bit.
Okay, and finally, how can people report fraud?
This is a great question. There's lots of different places to report fraud. I'm handing out materials to in every senior center where I visit, and on those we have the websites, FTC website, the FBI website. You can report to those. You can also report fraud to Utah Department of Commerce's Division of Consumer Protection. And oftentimes I will get questions like, "Well, which one should I pick?" And I tell them to report it everywhere. And what happens is when those reports come in, law enforcement will work together to build those cases. So we want the fraud to be reported so we can build our cases and go after the fraudsters.
Okay, some great information. We really appreciate that. Melissa Holyoak, the U.S. Attorney for Utah. We appreciate it. And
absolutely.
And we'll keep in touch with you on this and other issues. All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. And